Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Season 8 of the Night Out Championship here on RCI TV. The penultimate round in the championship live from Imola tonight, and it has been a long 2 weeks away from the series, but we're finally back in the quest to crown a couple of Season 8 champions. I'm Jesse Lee, as always, joined by Ryan Mawson, who's pulling a very special double duty tonight. The first time he's ever done that, broadcasting and commentating at the same time. Mawson, you've got a lot of buttons in front of you.
Oh yeah, I have all of the buttons, Jesse, and I'm trying to find where Stewie has left the remote for his drone cam. He's locked it away from me, you see. He's gone away on his skiing trip and he's hidden all of the fun toys, so I'm gonna have to find that later on. But yeah, a long 2 weeks away, but good to be back, and good to be back at Imola, which is a track just yesterday we saw some fantastic racing on.
Well, it's going to be a fun night, and Ryan Mawson has broadcasted before. He's a pro commentator as well. Some of you may have heard him in various other series throughout the last year or so as well, but we've never had him do both at the same time. You didn't have to do both at the same time. We're going to bring somebody else in. But Mawson, you committed the biggest foul you possibly can, and you said, I reckon I could do that.
Well, you may as well. It was one of those. We'll see how it goes. It either goes all right or it goes terribly. But we will work on those things when we get there, Jesse Lee. But yeah, it's nice to see. We'll see what happens. At least now I am in control. I am king of my castle, as it is an Englishman's castle. In this case, is the broadcast buttons. So keep them off.
Well, it's going to be a night like any other in the RCI TV kingdom, but it is going to be a night with 25 or so cars on the track. The upper and lower split, I think it's unfair to call it pro and am here, considering the depth of driver talent that we have. But still, two different championships going on at the same time for Night Owl, and of course the always interesting random pit requirement for Night Owl. It's the night that RCI kind of lets its hair down, has a little bit of fun with the rules. I tell you what, they've not been having a lot of fun with the new ACC assignment for giving a disqualification for excessive speeding in pit lane. And the RCI stewards have said that they will try and make sure that they overturn disqualifications for speeding in the pit lane as long as they're not on purpose, Ryan.
Yeah, this is a new thing which we actually seen a few people already being caught out by, but yeah, it shall be overruled also. I think I was reading that certain tracks like Misano, where it's easy if you go off, you have an accident, and you end up cutting a lot of the track just out of disorientation, you can get a disqualification for that, but once again, the stewards will review that, and if, as long as it isn't intentional and it was just a an accident rejoin or such, they will, once again, they will be taking those off and review the incident as per. So, good to see, the steward team having to ever evolve to the evolving game.
Yeah, and of course, that was a brand new problem that we've only noticed a few weeks ago. And ACC probably wants to have that strict penalty. But one of the great things about having a community, especially as strong as RCI's, with the stewarding team that we have, they immediately said that, yes, that might be what ACC wants to do, but we don't wish to have that. And a couple of you at home may be asking, well, why don't you just turn that off? And we've tried that. That actually doesn't work. You still get that penalty.
Yeah, and it is kind of certain times the game shall pick and choose what it decides, but it's one of those. It's what people would say is a very harsh penalty, but I think at Imola as well, we might see a few of those. It's one of the tracks where if you knock over that pit board coming into pit lane, it is very, very, very difficult to see the line. And even before this patch, where drivers had it was just a stop and go 30, I've seen plenty of people get a speeding for here in pit lane. So there you go. How many people do we think are gonna be fall foul to this time? I think at least one.
Yeah, I would have to say one person is going to go speeding into pit lane, maybe not in the right gear, trying to engage the limiter. Of course, in most, if not all, the cars, the pit lane limiter only works in first gear. So if you try to engage it in second gear, it just doesn't work. And you go flying down the pit lane. I've ran afoul of that myself several times. And also speeding out of pit lane, also an issue. But I'm being told the disqualification is usually speeding into the pit lane in excess of 80 kilometers an hour when you should be down at 50. So a little bit of a penalty there. But something else, we need to talk about penalties real quick. We're at Imola. You can make a lot of passes here, but you can also rack up a lot of track limit warnings around here as well.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Virialti chicane, Aqua Minerale, if you run wide there. Top of the hill, that is a prime spot for getting some understeer on the car. Just the front end washing out, and off the track you go. There's 1, 2, and 3, and you're gone. But not only that as well, but it is a track where you can very easily, quite often, throw your race away over some of the huge sausage curbs that exist here. They are very unforgiving, as we see Walter Billen actually take through that Rialto chicane that I mentioned. Probably one of the most, at least nerve-wracking as a driver, corners on this track, because you're coming up to it, you're trying to make your perfect line, you're thinking, oh, look at all this lovely delta that I've got, and it can be taken all away from you in the blink of an eye.
Sure can, and of course it matters what manufacturer you're in for the curbs. The Mercedes will care very little about hitting curbs, as they will monster truck over them for the most part. If you're in a McLaren tonight, you might think twice before even getting near them. As practice ends, qualifying up on deck. It has been 2 weeks since we've been here. Realistically, it's been, what, 3 weeks, because we took 2 weeks off and we're back this week. So 3 weeks ago, we ran our last night owl race. Of course, the World Tour and the Endurance One-Off Series taking place on Saturday, both those previous weeks. But we are finally back. This is the penultimate round, as I said in the intro. 6 rounds in the championship. The Thursday and Friday champ was also at Imola, and it was a bit of a mixed bag, Ryan Mawson. It was very chaotic on Thursday for the GT4, the twin 20-minute races that we did. A little bit calmer on Friday with a smaller field than we actually have tonight. and that race was fairly is fairly by the numbers, except that both of our championship contenders in that case had issues, but no major issues. Tonight, 24 plus cars. It could be a return back to mayhem. Turn two here, unforgiving.
Yeah, exactly so. And, you know, as well as that, we saw some fantastic racing as we finally go to qualifying, as everyone's starting to come down the pit lane, out. And, of course, as what is almost tradition at this point, Juna Savalainen out in front, that one, the red 100 Mercedes, a common sight we've seen on the tracks here. Quickly followed as well by Dylan Tan, who we were talking about pre-broadcast. We think here, we'll look at the standings in a little bit, but we think he's almost got this season all wrapped up and done. But the red 100 Mercedes, he raced here yesterday, already is, you know, well versed in this car and the setup and how to drive it. And what a day for qualifying. Yes, it's only a fast track, but 16-16 in Italy, that is a sight to behold.
Yeah, it sure is. It's a little chilly out there, folks, but the track will likely pick up grip here. 15 minutes, more than enough to get this track to optimum with this many GT3 cars on it. So these first couple of laps, they may be good enough to get your name on the board, but you're going to have to be running in the last 5 minutes of the session to have a real crack at either pole position for either of the two classes. Talked earlier about the race on Friday, the championship contenders having issues. Juna Savalainen making a habit of being in the championship conversation. He was a day ago and just came just a few positions shy of reaching that goal. He's in a very similar situation tonight, Mawson. He has a chance to take down Dylan Tan, but it is, after all, a long road to get there. But it all starts here with quality.
Absolutely, and we'll take a ride on board the red 100 for the first lap. What an absolute rocket ship this car is in a straight line. And the 2020 Mercedes, I remember when this car was the car to have at Imola, braking late into turn one. You want to get the car nice and rotated, but look at how much curb you can take in this Mercedes. Just turn in those yellow anti-cut sausage curbs. Yeah, they don't mean anything really. And coming up to Villeneuve, a chicane that I know a lot of drivers it's a very good technical circuit, but I hate that point for that gravel trap that sits on the left. Very easy to run out and, well, invalidate your lap, it actually. It can give you a track limits warning there, believe it or not, even if you run wide. I've had been that myself, and up the hill we go. This is the corner that I was mentioning about as the sun comes in the driver's eyes at 6 in the morning. Understeer city it can be, and you've got to not let the car skittle over the curbs, although it really much will want to. Aqua Minerale, heavy on the suspension and the lateral forces here. That'll definitely get your tyres worked out. And then if you've managed to get a Delta that's all nice and good, this is where it can come crashing down the final chicane, throw it over the curbs, which for a Mercedes means nothing. And there you go. There's 2 corners left on the track. Very difficult sometimes to judge your braking into this corner if you've been slipstreaming someone. It's downhill. You do have to brake a little bit earlier than you might necessarily think. And for the penultimate corner, done very nicely by Juna Savalainen. Got to run out wide but not touch the gravel. And then a run up to the line, actually a little bit of slipstream from the Mercedes in head. And what will it be for the 100?
That's going to end up being a 141.497, a good first attempt here. Bruno Madre in the 420 coming to the line will take third. The 420 second there on the board. Dylan Tan, this is the man we're looking for here. He is the championship leader, and all he needs today is a decent lap or a decent race as well, and he just needs to not have anything go wrong. He still can lose this championship. He's got to be wary about that. Curious about your battle tactic, Mawson. What do you do in this situation late in the season, battling for a championship? What does Mawson do? Do you take your foot off the gas a little bit, or do you play it like every race you have to win the race?
Well, it's almost exactly a switch of yesterday. You know, the McLaren driver that has already maybe tied up the season, but has it all to lose. I think if you're Dylan Tan, though, some of these fast McLaren drivers seem to just master the car, and they can always be fast, even at a track that you might not necessarily is brilliant for the car. You know, at Imola, it's not exactly in its pure comfort zone, but I think for Dylan Tan, he's going to put the foot purely to the floor, and he's just going to go for it, because really, what else, what else is there to do? And other than that, I'd say you can't really back off as much. If anything, sometimes as a driver, I found that is when you make the most mistakes, when you let your guard down and when you slow off that tiny bit.
Yeah, I don't think that you take the foot off the gas. I couldn't agree with that more. If you've got this far by scoring 3 wins and 4 podiums out of the 4 possible chances, why would you change anything? Alex Rogers working on getting up the grid and was briefly 6th there, went down to 7th. Thomas Pierce up into 6th place. Keep in mind, remember earlier of the 420, they were up in the top 3? Well, that car was all the way back to 15th before running a lap within a second of Savalainen's time. That's still the quick time of 41.497. Dylan Tan all the way up to 2nd. Chris Vining there in 3rd place. A little bit of work to do. Needs about 3/10 to get into contention for that front row spot. Samir Fosh 4th. 4/10 off, and this man, Jaroslav Roth for Connection Lost Racing, inside the top 5. So despite the curbs being deadly to the McLaren, we've got 2 of them in the top 5.
And actually, looking at Roth's Delta as well, that's almost half a second coming out of Aqua Minerale. So this is going to be what looks to be, if you can get it through the final chicane and the last 2 corners, quite a competitive time, and a lot of people up on their time now, as actually the track has switched over to optimum. I think that's why now we're seeing an absolute wall of green as Roth abandons the lap. Chris Vining finds himself with traffic up ahead, once again abandoning the lap. But Jonas Savalainen, I've just looked over at the Delta, this is going to be a flyer as he comes up to the line. It's a 141.4 is his current lap, 141.062.
Well, Savalainen's trying everything here. No doubt they've practiced for this race, trying to claw a little bit back. They don't have to erase the points gap today. All they have to do is gain a bit to make it easier in the final race. Savalainen trying to do everything, and he's got to, because Dylan Tan not far behind him. Neil Pimlott currently inside the top 10, 8th place currently, looking to pick up more, and I think he will do when he comes back across the stripe this time. The 913, they could use a good race. This is a driver that has had a frustrating time in recent weeks, but will improve. Was knocked back to 9th, but jumps up to 6th here with a 42.087. Nice lap from Neil Pimlott, well deserved.
Yeah, and everyone's starting to really get into the greens. And also, what we haven't quite noticed is that for the AM class, or the lower split, as you call them, Jesse, look at Brandon Baker go in the number 2. They're mixing it up in the top 10 with the pros. So you're showing exactly what the McLaren can do, and maybe we're slightly wrong about the McLaren here. Maybe it is good. You just have to drive it a certain way.
No, I think that's right. I think you can drive the McLaren here, and I've seen some of our RCI teams do that to great effect in the past, actually quite recently as well, finishing on podiums of endurance races. You just have to drive that car so differently, and it changes how you are aggressive. Normally in racing, you're aggressive by hitting curbs and maximizing lines. A lot of times you do that in the McLaren, it can get you into trouble. But a lot of these drivers, all these drivers in the pro class are veterans, and they're not likely going to make those mistakes most of the time. Dylan Tan to the top of the board, a 41.040, 22 100ths are off of the quickest time now is Savalainen, after Tan has set the new mark to beat. Everybody else half a second or more off of the pace, and I wouldn't have called this. Normally we come to Imola, the top 5 or so are very close, within a 10th or so. Not so today. Tan and Savalainen are stealing the show.
Yeah, and Samir Fosh, another driver that we've seen some great things from this season, knocks it up, another improvement, 5th, but 0.7 of a second off the pole time, which is just, like you said, incredible to think And this man as well, if he can keep it all the way around this lap, this might be a brief upset, but he has got traffic up ahead. This is Xavier Lai for the 74 Mercedes. Once again, a car that I remember when this used to be the car that you brought to Imola. You wouldn't bring any other car.
We had special BOP, remember? Yeah. We had special BOP for this car.
Yep. And I think that was an invalid. It was looking over, and that is the corner that I mentioned. It can all come undone for you. With 4 minutes and 54 left on the clock. Not many times left around for these drivers. If you've returned to the pits and you're coming back out, you've only maybe got 2-3 laps maximum.
Yeah, I think that's just about all you got. You're at maximum. You're going to have 3 good laps here, and you can't really afford to reset here because you would have almost no time to get back out there, get the tires back warm, and set an earnest lap. You need a couple of laps to get everything up to temperature and get clear of traffic, of course, is also a big thing. We haven't talked about that, but with so many cars on the racetrack tonight, space is at a premium, even for a larger track like Imola. Samir Foch here, who has no doubt changed his colors in support of Ukraine, as it appears, and I think there's a few other cars like that in the field as well. So Samir Foch inside the top 5, looking to go a little bit better themselves, and they do indeed. Top 3, a 41.107, and that closes the gap up front, and that's more like it, not only out of Samir Foch, but out of the group itself. 3 cars within a tenth. I told you it's normally close here. Savalainen, though, not willing to let that stand, does not want to start second. He wants to be the inside pole sitter. Could he do it this lap? He only needs 22/100ths of a second. He's got a little bit of the suck, and he will do a 40.897, beating Dylan Tan by more than 1.5, or just about 1.5 tenths. Now that's a lap. The gauntlet thrown down here, and Dylan Tan, what will he have to respond?
Right, if Savalainen doesn't catch up this traffic, I don't think he's even done yet. He's found another 1/10.5 as he throws it over the curbs. So the whole pack's starting to close up now. Samir Foch as well, managing to find another 10th, looking on my screen and looking back. Jaroslav Roth, Neil Pinlot, Thomas Pierce, all this group, they are all improving up. 1.1 tenths off, 1.1 seconds off the pole, I should say, but I think that the track now is really starting to rubber in, and in these cold conditions, even after the pre-1.8, that a lot of people said, you know, cars will be slower. I'm not seeing that. A 140.8 is still, you know, incredibly fast around here.
Yeah, it really is. That is absolutely smoking. Pimlott now back down to 9th, was as high as 6th. And as the track continues to improve, I know the track says it's optimum, but it does improve past that. Folks that may not be fully acclimated to ACC, it continues to rubber up after optimum, and also you just get more comfortable as well. And he goes back up the field as well. Javier inside the top 5, looking to pick up a little bit more for Blue Steel Racing. He goes down into Aqua Minerale. And by the way, Mawson, before we get too far away from it, I thought that was a wonderfully commentated lap around Imola. And I always love a driver's perspective, pointing out specific parts of the track that frustrate them more than any. If I had to pick mine, it's right here. And, well, Javier just showed you why.
Exactly so, and actually at 6 a.m. that sun is quite blinding as you come into that final chicane. That will definitely not aid in finding your, helping find the apex for that. Looking down the field as well, Samir Foch has returned to the pits, has decided that for the 888, that is as fast as that car can go. Jonas Savalainen did have some time, has slightly lost it in the first sector, but once again we've seen that car has managed to pick it up in the last sector. Dylan Tan, he has about, in fact, Dylan Tan has decided to space himself out from the traffic ahead. He's got one more lap to do it. Looking at that timing board thinking, it's literally a 10th. That is all that you need for the 141, is 1/10 of a second. But can he find it? We'll find out when he crosses the line at the end. And for everyone else, I think the only sort of big gainers, once again, is Xavier Lai, if he can hold that lap together.
Well, Dylan Tan rather, that was a slow lap, several seconds off the pace, tells me that he let off at some point on the track. I don't think that was an accident for Tan. I think that was him trying to find space to get in a lap, and it's going to be now or never for the driver of the 141. And what about Savalainen here? Is going to lose it
Ooh.
now, coming down the backside of the circuit, and that's going to be job done and qualifying over for the driver of the 100. Just lost it under braking there a little bit, saved it. That was not a big moment. If that in the race, you just forget that happened. In qualifying, ruined his lap. He was been several tenths off after that small movement. That's all it takes.
Absolutely, and that looked like an incredibly fast lap. I even saw 3/10 on the Delta briefly, which would have just been absolutely flying. But for Dylan Tan, he's caught right up to the back of the 228 Porsche. This is the view from on board, coming into the final chicane. You've got to find some space. He knows that this lap is going to be a now or never, but the AM car is, you know, that they're on their lap and they're entitled to it. What can he do for the 228? He looks to the inside. It's going to be too wide coming into the braking zone. The 228 backs out. And will that have lost Tan the pole? It could have done. It might just be a bridge too far with catching the traffic. It's always a problem at Imola. It's a very fast track, but you catch people at always the worst times, it seems. And what will it be for Tan coming across the line? It will not be an improvement.
Final qualifiers coming in. You could tell those that have either had an issue on their lap or aren't tracking to beat their lap, because it is quite humorous to me to see them pull off into the pit lane right before getting to the line. And Thomas Pierce not doing that here, reckons he has a shot to get inside the top 10, and I think he might do. He's getting as close as he can to the wall. He didn't get inside the top 10. He got way inside the top 10. 7th place there for Thomas Pierce, and that will conclude qualifying for tonight's race. Savalainen on pole by nearly a tenth over Tan. Foch third. Vining shares a second row with him. Rogers and Lai the next row as well. Well, we talked about the points championship, and we talked about it coming down to the end. We talked a lot about Savalainen needing a lot of help and needing a great race tonight. Let's show you the championship points. Here's what it looks like. Dylan Tan in the 141 has been almost perfect this season. 4 podiums in 4 races, 3 wins for Dylan Tan, 141 points. I just realized that's the same as his number. How neat is that? Savalainen in second on 116, looking to do some damage today to give himself a fighting shot in 1 week's time. Samir Foch on 108 as well, also not out of it. 4th place, Javier Lai with 55 points. Jaroslav Roth rounding out your top 5, just 4 points behind the 4th place driver. Alex Rogers on 43, Vining on 35, 2 points behind him. Giorgio Magazi with 33. Giannis Tassopoulos in 9th place with 29. Roman Frawler rounding out the top 10, 25 points. Second page here, you're going to find a lot of close racing here. Madre in 11th place with 23. Pimlott on 19 tied with John Arasser, who I didn't see out there tonight. I'll have to scour the grid when we come back. Thomas Pierce and Flamger tied for 14th place. Billen in 17th. And Huell in 18th place with 4 points. And nobody else has points for this season. Got to finish inside the top 15 to get points as far as I'm aware. Going on to the AM Championship, a lot tighter here. Anton with 102 points. Sam Welfling, second place, 10 points behind him. Miguel Martins, one of our new commentators that you'll hear in the near future, in third place in the championship. All of these cars well within distance of winning this championship, including Fantozzi as well, it must be said, in fourth with 74. Muhammad Kamal Ali rounds out our top 5 with 64, 2 points behind him. Borrego Estefado with 62. Matt Williams in 7th place with 58, another one of our new additions to the commentary team. Gal in 8th place with 46 points. Brandon Baker on 29, tied with Cody Watkinson. And outside of there, Daniel Kent, the only driver with points here in 11th place. Everybody else has yet to score points, either by not finishing inside the top 15 or have retired from the championship. Well, that's how we've got to this point, Mawson. If you're Savalainen, the job's simple. That's get as many points as you can. Check the first box, job done. They've got the bonus points for having the pole position. But what about getting fast lap and the win? Maximum point 72. And even though it won't draw them level between him and Tan, it would go a long way to having a fighting chance next week.
Oh yeah, for the 100, it's not over until it's over, and it is one of the best cars for this track. If he's going to upset this championship battle, he needs to do it now, where the Evo is strong and where the McLaren is maybe slightly weaker. But we've seen, in the Friday Championship where he ended up in a battle of between two people, and you've got to then play your moves right, where the choice of attacking the person in front is opening the door for the person behind. I think it was Jardier that he was almost under attack for quite a long time. So it's going to be another interesting race. He'll be hoping that it's not an absolute carbon copy. I'm sure for the 100, he will want to distance himself from Tan and pull away as quickly as possible. And some of these other drivers looking down the field, I'm interested to see what that 288 can do of Jaroslav Roth. He appeared to have, quite a lot more time. It's just every single time would either catch traffic or the lap was invalid. And for the lower split, the 762 of Tito Anton, that looks incredibly strong here as the Bentley. And even though we didn't really catch it while we weren't looking, yeah, the number 2, they lost out that pole position for the AM class. So all to play for the Bentley.
I just want to point out that Matt Williams is in our chat rooting for himself. I'm not sure what's going on with that. It's pretty funny all the same. I actually saw a lot of our brand new commentators that you'll be hearing over the next several weeks, and including some of the endurance races as well as we introduce them. A lot of them are here either on the track or in the chat of YouTube. And welcome in to all of you folks. And if you are in tonight's race, very much good luck to all of you as well. Speaking of staff, I am surprised Grim Lilith is in the 17th place position, but third in his class. And I'm sort of surprised about that. I talked to Grim pre-race today, Mawson. He wasn't really that confident, but also feels that he could pull off an upset here tonight. We'll have to find out if that's possible. But for the leader in the lower class, Anton, job done for him as well, starting up near the front, defending the very small championship lead that he has. A good race tonight would go a long way in deciding that championship later on. Savalainen, very clear job to do. Get max points and keep Tan behind. Doesn't matter what Tan does. If he finishes behind, Savalainen will be scoring more points tonight. But that's easier said than done, because staying out of trouble around Imola can be quite tricky.
Can be tricky, and sometimes the problems are brought to you that you might not even want to be involved in accidents, and you come round some of the blind corners and they are just there. So it'd be keeping your nose clean and keeping it on the track is one half of Imola, and pace is another half, especially at likes of Aqua Minerale. That chicane, it's easy to get a drive through. It's easy to come undone when it comes into the pit stops. If you're just a little bit too late on the brakes, it can you can get a penalty, a disqualification if you come in like a rocket ship. So Imola is one of the more challenging tracks, even though a lot of people might look at it and think it looks quite easy to drive around. A lot of the corners can very much undo you, as it were, and still at the track conditions we've got, 17-17, managing the tyre temperatures for the start and for the first couple of laps is going to be a bit tricky. Stopping the graining and having any kind of grip to attack, and move forward at the early stages of the race, that's going to be tricky.
Yeah, and I tell you something else. I was trying to find what the pit requirements are for tonight, but as far as I know, they were not posted. So we'll find out when the drivers find out, apparently.
Well, there you go.
Well, beyond that, it's going to be an interesting night. I say night. It's morning here in Italy. It's 6:24 a.m. 1 hour, one pit stop required, but I don't know what the requirement is. It could be 1 liter of fuel. It could be tires, but we'll bring that to you when we get that information. It's a chilly start, all things considered. Savalainen will be having PTSD from a day ago where he was trying to get by George Boothby here. Today, it's an all very different sort of affair with Dylan Tan, and now with pole position, can Savalainen convert that into a little gap? 20-some cars. The stewards have told me, they've told both of us, in fact, that they're preparing for the worst down into turn 2. Of course, turn 1 is the dog leg down the front straightaway, which makes what you would normally think as turn 1. That's actually turn 2, according to the track map. Everybody lined up 2 by 2, 10 plus rows deep, getting ready to get the green flag and the green lights on the penultimate round of Season 8 of the Night Owl Championship. And we are green as we thunder down into turn 2. It's a clean getaway from Savalainen. Tan backs up a little bit and has a look. Samir Foch on the inside in contact with Vining, I think that was, and they're both parked on the outside of the racetrack as they go through turn 5. Savalainen out in front of Tan. Foch and Vining are parked on the side of the circuit, and they get going the right way. 3 wide here for this position. They sorted out down to 2 wide. A wise decision that could have been a lot worse.
Could have very much been a lot worse, especially with the start of Imola. It's just too wide into turn 2, the accordion effect, and sometimes that will not happen. And I think, like I said, for Chris Vining, the Audi came off the worst of that. I'll see if we have that replay at some point when my buttons stop flashing at me.
Ryan Mawson again. For those of you that weren't with us in the offing. He's obviously the voice you normally hear opposite me. That's not different. What's different is he's the mad lad behind the controls, and he's doing the talking. You're doing a great job, by the way, Ryan. I just want to say I couldn't do it. I have done it, and I absolutely couldn't do it. That's why I don't. But you're absolutely doing it. Absolute pro. We're going to take a look at the replay here. This is the aftermath of Vining, and that was Vining and Foch. That's Foch's blue and yellow Ferrari there. Again, we have several cars in the blue and yellow stripes this week in solidarity for what's going on in Eastern Europe. You love to see stuff like that. And, oh no, one of those cars I was just mentioning off, that's the Mercedes that has had issues. They've spun off into the inside of the racetrack, and they have now rejoined. But Vining got absolutely the worst of that, it appears, outside or inside the top 5, all the way back outside the top 25 there for a moment.
Yeah, like I said, just trying to make his way back through, and could this be a move converted? Neil Pimlott got over the curb, and that's Jaroslav Roth up looking up the inside, but it will not be coming into the Villeneuve chicane. Got to try use the downforce of that McLaren. Once again, the BMW has a little bit of a wiggle going out, and Jaroslav Roth rooking all the way around the outside. It's going to be a long, hard drive, because not only have you got to go around the outside of this corner, you've got to go around the outside at the top of the hill. It slots back in very wisely. But I think if anything, Jaroslav Roth has got the pace in the early race.
Woo, Neil Pimlott went really wide, and that opened the door to Roth, who's going to try and go around the outside of Aqua Minerale. This can go very wrong, particularly here, but they're going to just about get it done. Oh, Roth jumps the curb. I thought that would hurt his chances, but it hasn't done. Pimlott, it's a drag race, and they're all stacking up behind him, 2 and 3 wide. This is very dangerous stuff. Pimlott and Roth get it sorted out. Go ahead and give Roth 6th place, but only just. Look behind in the rearview mirror. More cars trying to get around Pimlott as they thunder down the hill, and all the braking distances are different here as Flamger looks for an inside move, covered up by Pimlott. It won't happen. Billen and Baker waiting in the wings.
Timothy Flamger just saw this battle going on and thought, I want a piece of that action while the BMW is being slowed up. But once again, you've got to make that calculated move where you go for the move on the car in front, you open it up for the car behind, and looking back as well, that is P1 and P2 in the AM class who are sort of sandwiched between all of this. The Bentley trying to catch up to the McLaren, but they've got all the battling pro cars also around them.
If I was Baker here, I'd be very careful. We didn't see exactly how he got around Anton on that start, but you may imagine if they were going 3 wide, it could have very easily have happened at any given point. So Baker leading in the lower class over Anton. And if you are Anton, I don't mind this, because all you have to do, all the competitors that you're racing against are still well and truly behind you. And a win is great. Oh, and there's a Bentley off in the background. Is that the 6 car of Frawler? I think it is. It is. It is Roman Frawler, the ST Racing Bentley, parked in the hairpin. And I know that looks dangerous, folks, but it's less dangerous than what it could have been. Is this contact between the two? Well, we couldn't see it because of the tree, but I'm going to go ahead and assume so. And yeah, that's the safest thing that Roman could do there, is just sit there and be predictable. He could have hit it in reverse. There's always this hesitancy in racing drivers that they don't want to hit reverse. And he could have done that in that case, but I think he chose to sit there and be predictable, let the entire line go through. And that's also probably, I'm sure the stewards appreciate that option just a little bit more.
Yeah, sometimes it's just, even if you're moving, even if it is to the outside of the track, it can spook some drivers, and that will then cause an accident, cause them to do something unpredictable, because you are thinking about being unpredictable in a way. And so yeah, sometimes just better to hold the brakes and accept the time loss. And where do you look in this field, apart from the front to where Juno Savalainen has managed to pull almost a second gap up to Dylan Tan, then there's a bit of a gap back. Everyone is still very much in a train, as we didn't catch it, but Jaroslav Roth still managing to march away from 913. But I mean, look in the background and look at that track map. It's just cars as far as the eye can see battling.
It really is. Seb Brunier in chat pointing out the train's still intact, and that is a symptom of racing here at Imola, because the track is so diverse in its corners and what it requires. There's some corners that require you to be really late on the brakes. There's some that are sweeping corners. Outright speed on the straightaways, also important, because it requires so many different elements. There's no perfect GT racing car. It doesn't exist. And because of that, each car has its own attributes that it's better at than other cars. What that means is that you get these trains created. Oh, a big move here into the chicane, and it's not going to work. And was that Anton? That was Anton. Tio Anton, your lower split championship leader, has spun off in the chicane. Now this move, I just feel, just got on the brakes a little bit later and got sent there. And that's going to add to the total. I heard the stewards were dealing with a litany of different lines of contact in their tool. So they're going to be working on that for quite some time. And that just added to the fray. Sir Williams here looking up the inside. Doesn't quite have the overlap on Baker. And they go back single file. Now Anton has put themselves in a rough situation, Mawson. And this is not as good looking as it was a little while ago. Small lead. Oh no, Sir Williams off.
So Williams just, I think that was a catch of the inside curb there. It just threw the mid-engine Ferrari off. It's not really a car that you want to upset the handling and the balance of. It will bite you, and that's exactly what happened there. And yeah, like you said earlier, there is kind of no perfect GT car. You can have a Mercedes down the straights, it will be phenomenal, but then and you can have the curb munching. But you have to run so much more fuel because of that big 6.2 litre V8 engine just chews it like it's going out of factory. It is a little bit harder on the tyres, and maybe through certain corners it struggles. McLaren, great downforcey car, isn't quite as good on the curbs, and it requires a certain way. Bentley is good through the corners, but a little bit wild coming out of them. Every single car has some form of downside.
So let's update you on the running order. Savalainen leads half a second over Tan. That gap has been coming down as Dylan has run down the leader by half of the distance that it was. Rogers up in third. Pierce and Roth are your top 5. Pimlott, Flamger, Billen, Baker, and Magazi, the top 10. It's Baker, Grimm, and Roberts, the top 3 in the lower class. So with Anton going off, Grimm has converted a third-place starting spot up to second. So he was not kidding around, saying that he could potentially get one here tonight. He's not got too far to go. I know he's several positions behind, but they're all in the same line.
Yeah, and you know, that is half of Imola, is just can you keep it clean and consistent, and this train of Mercedes has not let off the fighting each other, which is, you know, you're in matched machinery at this point. It makes it that little bit harder to pass your fellow Mercedes, because none of them really, as well, the Mercedes, you can't do any different strategies just because of the fuel burn and the tyres. A lot of times it is fill the tank up as much as you can and be fast. And I think a lot of the Mercedes drivers will be employing this strategy, so you just end up all bunched together, as we see here, as that is Magazi trying his best to get around the very pink BWT car of Phil Large.
Well, I will tell you, the stewards have been inundated with reports, not penalties, but with reports. We will bring those out to you in bulk. I can tell you that nothing has come across the desk as of yet. Head steward Phil Roberts trying to negotiate his troops, and when I say that, I mean that there is a army, a platoon at least, of stewards, and if there was ever a night to have them, it would be tonight. Speaking of adding new members to the group, Tom Bryant's crew as head steward, he got himself a couple of new stewards as well. We get a couple of new commentators, Ryan Mawson. They get some new stewards. Absolutely glad to have them, especially on a night like tonight.
Yeah, we get a bit of new everyone into the RCI family and just making it that little bit bigger. Good to see. And yeah, it takes maybe a little bit of stress off some of the stewards when they are fully trained up. And look in the background as well. The car that we saw have that problem earlier with Chris Vining. That is Samir Foch's Ferrari trying to march back through the field. I thought that maybe they might have taken the early pit stop. I thought at least someone might have taken the early pit stop with some of the accidents, but it would appear not. I think the only car that I can see currently is the 31 has come into the pits, but then that's about it.
Yeah, of course, I was told by race admin Ted Edwards what the requirement is tonight. It's a 15-minute window in the middle of the race, so that's a tighter window than usual, and also the minimum requirement of taking 1 liter of fuel. No tire change required, but in an hour race here, would somebody try it? And on top of that, would you try it, as one of the Ferraris goes off in the background? So, Mawson, I ask you, would you risk it taking 30 seconds in the pit lane to take tires?
It depends on what car I would be driving, and really how to explain this in a term that makes sense, because I talk in a lot of times it doesn't make sense when racing. If I feel like my pace and the gap was sufficient, then yes, but if I felt more under threat, then I would not, and I would work around it, because I've kind of got this weird like style of driving where it don't matter if the tires are fresh or they are completely shredded. My pace doesn't really seem to fall off, as that's one of the Mercedes very sideways, and that's one of the Ferraris hard in the background. Was that Sir Williams?
Sir Williams. I think it is.
That is.
And you are correct. Sir Williams, he was the one we saw go wide into the chicane a lap ago. That car not handling quite as well as Sir Williams would like it to. And here's the replay for you on board with the 533 Ferrari as we go into the left-right second. Lost it coming in.
Just the rear end looked very, very light, you know, and like I said, guessing from the earlier damage, gets it back going again. But a sad moment for Sir Williams. I assume that that car now must come down pit lane to fix the damage. That's been hard into the wall, at least, you know, once. But yeah, with the pit stop and the tires, like I said, it depends. It depends what I think my pace is, and if I feel under threat, or if I feel like I want to get maybe a little bit more in the long run. It's hard to call sometimes.
Sir Williams doing the same thing he did a lap ago, but that time sort of parking on the outside of the racetrack there. That car very clearly, like you said, very heavily damaged. Mawson, I'm about to go on one of my world-famous long ones. If something happens, please do interrupt me in the meantime. As actually, we got a pass coming right there for the moment, but I digress. Got a couple of things that have come up from the stewards. Alpha's the one handing me the papers tonight. Racing incident between car 228 and 812. No further action between the 888 and the 113. Racing incident between the 414, the 699, and the 96. Racing incident. Warning for car 113 for rejoining slowly in the middle of the pack, and an unsafe, calling it an unsafe rejoin in front of traffic. So no actual penalties yet, but a warning for the 113 for an unsafe rejoin. Everything else just deemed inconsequential, accidental.
Well, there you go. Already the stewards' reports and the pieces of paper are starting to fly, as this group has still not sorted themselves. We briefly saw Dylan Tan as well catch all the way to the back of Jonas Savalainen, but was, once again, it's that final chicane where it can just completely make or break your lap time, and for Dylan Tan that time decided to take to the runoff was the better part and save the lap time. That probably will have gotten him a track limits warning, so you've got to be careful not to do that too many times. But for the front two, they're just in a class of their own. They have completely gone and abandoned the rest of the pack, who, because of the Imola and, you know, the style of this track, everyone is still sort of fighting. We usually get these kind of little trains of 2 or 3 drivers that are fighting. We've got kind of 3 big trains that are separated, but other than that, everyone's still within striking distance of each other as soon as anyone starts battling.
Well, you saw it earlier. Frawler got turned in the hairpin and went from, what, about 15th place to 30th. And that's just the nature of racing here. And it's not even that so much. That's an accident. You don't even have to get involved in an accident to have that happen. You get side by side with somebody and somebody passes you, that opens the door for somebody right behind you, and then you get stranded on the wrong side of the racetrack. It could be a long, slow journey to the back of whatever line that you're in. Just saw Grimm there for a moment. He's dropped back to 3rd place in class. Roberts up to 2nd in the lower class. Baker well and truly out in front of that field now, up inside the top 10, 9th place, and on the back of Flamger still. Chris Vining, the Red Delta Racing 113 Audi, trying to get up on by Racer here for the 15th place. And at this stage, this would still be for points in the championship, as there are some pro cars in there anyway, so this would be better than 1 or 2 points if Chris Vining could pull this off. And of course, this is the recovery drive after the turn 2 spin.
Yeah, very much trying to just get back through the field, but John Aracer, you know, he's no stranger to having to defend from people, 2 pro cars, so they will very much, you know, be racing each other. Sometimes as a lower split driver, you can make that call and decide that it doesn't affect my race. I'm going to let them go, but you're also fully entitled to, you know, to defend your position. In fact, if I remember, Baker in the 2, he was very much defending it from Phil in the 14, you know, because he's under no obligation to let him by.
Yeah, absolutely. Nobody's going to tell you anywhere here in RCI that you can't defend a position if you're on the same lap regardless. So that's what that's about. And of course, it's a point of pride for the leader of any class. Like, look, man, I got to go. I'm running my race too. It's not my fault that you don't have quite as good of a pace as I do. And that is all fair indeed. Samir Foch talking about recovery drive on one of his own, of course, involved with the Vining accident himself. Got back inside the top 10, looking for a little bit more here from 9th place, just in front of him. Talk about the trains, and this is certainly one of them. Large here, holding on to that position. Foch just patiently waiting at this stage, looking for potentially a mistake from Large in front.
And that's Magazi in the background as well, who's trying to chase down Baker. So that will be an M-Class car. That will not be a position for in-class. But, you know, once Magazi's got by, he's got quite a few Pro-Class cars ahead of him and not too far. And it actually looks like Magazi's gone for the move. Dukes of hazarding it over the chicane. That's what you can do in the Mercedes if you are confident in it, throws it over the curbs and decides that I am leaving you now, McLaren. It's been fun, but I must go. I have pro cars to battle.
We weren't kidding earlier when we said that the Mercedes could do that, and you just saw it for the very first time. Using those curbs efficiently like that can be the difference between making up a position or losing a position. Very few cars can do that. The Mercedes certainly, above all else, seems to do it better. A few more things coming across the desk. Racing incident between the 420 and the 2. Drive-through penalty for car 533 for taking out car number 2. Position not returned. Racing incident between car 34 and 14. Racing incident between car 5 and 115. I'm being told they're nearly done with the first lap, but they have a pile that has formed in the backlog as well. Foss trying to get this spot from the outside. You can do this at Imola, but doesn't on this occasion. Defended well by Large there.
It shows his intent and shows the pace of the Ferrari, despite, you know, the earlier problems, has been marching back through the pack and already up to 10th and looking to get that position done and for the 9th position and up the road. I think definitely that the Ferrari could have it closest right up to the back of Large in Acqua Minerale, and that's where the Ferrari and the mid-engine cars really do come into their own. It's just those high-speed corners where you can really trust the aerodynamics, but then we get to the back half where the Mercedes can munch the curbs. But actually, Samir Foch looked like he had a great drive out of the chicane.
He sure did. You wouldn't normally assume a Mercedes would be beaten in that way, but looked like he got a decent enough start off of the chicane, but it didn't do anything this time by. But as a driver, that's something you put in the memory bank. You try that again and again. Saw that last night with Savalainen making passes. He would probe for weakness. He would find something that would work and execute. It took him a couple of times to get it to come off, but again, that's part of racing. You've got to keep your head on a swivel and try different things. You got to go where your opponent isn't. Case in point, around the outside of turn 2, trying to get any sort of headway. If he stays side by side, if Foch stays side by side with Large there, well, that position could have changed on this straightaway right here, because the outside does become the inside, and of course, you never know, down a long straightaway, drag race style, it's anybody's game. Covered up there that time. Large keeping Foch from going around the outside. Also, I mean, they may be fighting for 9th place, but that's Timothy Flamger in the McLaren right in front. He's not getting away from this group, even though they're fighting.
No, I think especially when they've had a lap where they haven't really been fighting each other a lot, that gap is really closed down. I mean, look at the gap coming into Acqua Minerale. That is visibly getting smaller. And actually, looking in the background as well, the 34 of Magazi, he's not too far away from this train either. You can just about see the blue, red and black Mercedes coming over the top there. So, you know, he's within striking distance here. But yeah, that gap just tumbling. I wonder what's happened to the McLaren of Timothy Flamger.
I don't know if maybe this is something to do with the tires, or if maybe the pace has just been found behind him, but otherwise Flamger is about to inherit a problem that only Large had a few laps ago. And there you have it, folks. 15 minutes of pit window. All drivers must complete their pit stop in those 15 minutes, and you must take 1 liter of fuel to satisfy that requirement. No tire change required tonight, but only 15 minutes to get it done. And that basically, if you had a strategy coming into this weekend, 15 minutes to pit, that kind of ruins it because it's being dictated for you. And some of you at home may say, well, that's no fun, is it? It's like, well, it's fun for us because that makes drivers think a little bit differently. They don't get to do exactly what they want to do. And you don't know. If everybody has to play in the same box, somebody might take tires around the outside. Matthew Roberts is going to nearly chuck it off the racetrack. And that was close quarter stuff. And Grimm has retaken the 2nd place position in that class. Something else we didn't talk about, something's happened to Baker as he's dropped outside the top 10 as the pro cars have matriculated towards the front of the field. Baker is no longer leading this by several seconds. These drivers fighting for second now. That's just Baker right in front of them in the white and day-glow yellow car.
So it once again seems that, like Timothy Flamger, just that McLaren is dropping off. I'm just wondering, is it perhaps, yeah, a tyre issue, or they're not keeping heat in the tyres, or something is happening to the McLarens over the course of the race? But Brandon Baker is, yeah, slowing off. The last lap was a 43.7 to the Mercedes is battling 43.9. So when they actually are not battling each other exactly like this, they are catching up. But there you go. Matthew Roberts not happy to let that position go. He wants that second place back in his class.
That was an excellent pass and some good hard racing between podium contenders today. You have to give it to both of them. Ooh. Oh no, contact here. Phil Large has contact. There's going to be more contact between Large and was
Timothy Flamger.
Like, that was Flamger. Okay, I was curious who that was. So that's Timothy Flamger. Large here and Flamger side by side. Now, what on earth? Was that a tap?
Touches into turn one.
Turning.
Well, turn two, yeah. Taps into turn two, and that sends Timothy Flamger round.
Oh, dear. Now, that was not a great moment there. Luckily, there was nobody else around them, so it had minimal impact. But the wiped-out car there slid through. Flamger had additional contact with Large after the accident because, I mean, that's just the way the track goes. We see that ever so often as well. Well, here's Jordan Daly. We haven't talked about the Triple R 197 at all today, but here he is doing Jordan Daly things, working his way back up towards the top 10 near the halfway point in the race. I feel like that's kind of what Daly's known for, is he qualifies all right, but he always seems to race a little bit better than he qualifies. Looking for another top 10 here.
And he's also looking through the pack of AMGs that have seemed to have, they've all clumped together as all the AMGs. Normally you would expect them to all either run away, or the AMG can sometimes have a bit of a bite out of you as a driver, and it can, you know, it can do things that maybe you don't want it to do and send you off. As actually the two in front dive into the pit lane. That is Matthew Roberts diving in, leaving Grim Lilith alone to lap and possibly going for the undercut, or trying to get a little bit of more space between. But yeah, they all seem to have clumped together. And for those at home as well, Grim Lilith's car is meant to be a custom livery. It's not just a plain snow white car. I just did a derp and I didn't download them, so I am very sorry, and you can give me a slap on the wrist after the race if Grim comes and finds me.
Oh, well, dear. And it's all going to plan for Daly, of course, as he would like everybody to pit out from in front of him, or maybe he pits here to get out from behind the lower class cars, so he can get in front of them and back inside the top 10 as pit stops well and truly underway. The standings are going to look a little weird for a few laps here. Magazi electing to not follow Flamger into the pit lane that time. Samir Fosh has finished their pit stop and is looking to work on, I think that's Artem in front. I think that's the last car, or the last car that hasn't pitted in the lead group, and gets that pass done. So Fosh up one more spot. Fosh definitely the leader of the cars that have pitted thus far. What do you favor here in a pit stop situation like this? The undercut, the overcut? What do you like?
It's a strange one. I always thought that the undercut was the stronger strategy in ACC. It always did seem to work quite well. But then I've been informed by a couple of people I've been talking to, you know, doing some other things in the background, that you always want to try for the overcut. So I honestly don't know what to believe anymore for pit stops. I do believe that you have to practice them and you have to nail it down, because you can very easily lose 2-3 seconds, and, you know, all that time that you have built up on the racetrack, it won't be very good for you. But what I do know from Samir Fosh, at least the last go around and that outlap was blistering fast. That was a 42.3, which you know, that is very much what the people in P3, 4, and possibly 5, I think, from the last goes around are running. So this car is back on the charge.
Well, Foch knows he's got to get a move on. He had that early issue and now is trying to work his way back up through the group, and he knows he can basically get several spots back by just being one of the faster cars. I think he was a little held up by some of the competitors in front of him, and he had a little bit more pace that whole time, just being a bit patient after the shaky start. And again, a veteran is Foch, trying to gain all those spots back. Be curious to see how far up he can get now before the end of the race. Near halfway into the race, time to thank our partners that make this race and every race possible. Race Department, AK Informatica, Driver 61, Fanatec, and SimRacing.gp. We'll have more information about those lovely folks after the race today and tell you how you can get 25% off your driver coaching at the end of the race. But until then, 30 minutes to go and just about half the pit window left in this one. A couple of penalties that have come through, one of which for this driver, Jordan Daly. We will discuss several of the penalties that have come through. Drive-through penalty for car 414 for taking out the 548. Warning for car 71 for not holding brakes after a spin. 5-second penalty for car 71 for causing avoidable contact. Racing incident between the 420 and the 111. Racing incident between the 228 and the 71. Racing incident between the 666 and the 197. Racing incident between the 420 and the 111. Mawson, do you know what I'm about to say next?
Could it be incident racing?
No, it isn't. It's actually a drive-through penalty. No, it is a drive-through penalty, but before that, 15-second penalty for car 197 for taking out the 666. Position attempted to be returned. I don't think we saw that occur, but 15 seconds for the 197, and also a drive-through penalty. Again, this is not a repeat for car 414 for taking out car number 6. Position not returned. We did see that, and because of that, disqualification for car 414 for meeting the maximum license points in a single race. Not thrown out of the championship, just will take no further part in the race today.
Well, there you go. That's a piece of paper to read through, and yeah, we did think that it might have been it looked like a very clean start. It appears that once people had done lap 1 and decided to settle, then everyone thought that now is the perfect time to go. And speaking of settling down, a lot of the battles, this is always what happens during the pit cycles. You wait with bated breath, and you wait with bated breath as a driver. Maybe you're in one of those trains of battles, and you see the 1, the 2, the 3, I say today, peel off that you were battling with, and they disappear, and you're sat alone on the racetrack thinking, right, where are they? What are they doing? Have they got a better pit stop than me? Are they in traffic? What's going on? And just gotta pray and hope that you don't see them coming out of the, or when you come out of the pit lane, that you don't see them in your rearview mirror again. And for Dylan Tan as well, he's firmly focused on Juna Savalainen, but I think these guys are gonna probably go as far to the pit window as possible. I think maybe a few more laps and we'll see the likes of Savalainen and Tan come in. And meanwhile as well, Tan does actually hold the fastest lap of the race over that 100 Mercedes. So it shows what the McLaren can do. Maybe he's actually waiting a little bit for the second half of the race and then is going to really open the taps.
Well, of course, the Speed Juice fastest lap of the race award currently going to Tan, but I think you're on to something, partner. You mentioned earlier all the McLarens looked like they were struggling, falling back a little bit. Keep in mind, Tan was on the rear bumper cover of Savalainen's Mercedes about 15 minutes ago and has lost about a second in that time. So what is going on? I think your hypothesis is correct. Something amiss for the majority of the McLarens midway through this race. Just don't know what it might be.
I mean, maybe it's the change in temperature. We have gone up slightly from the 17 to the 18. Not a big increase, but maybe if they've got a really sensitive setup or they're really sensitive to tyre pressures, we should probably ask our resident setup expert, who I have seen in the chat, of Sebastian Brunier. Is the McLaren super delicate to tyre pressure changes, and maybe that's what they're struggling with? It's hard to tell, but you know, there just seems to be a common theme here that the McLarens started off very, very, very strong, and all of them appear to be falling off just that little bit.
Yeah, it's a good question. Seb Brunier, a champion in his own right, a night owl champion in the McLaren, as far as I recall, and also a esports engineer himself. So if any of us would know, it certainly would be him. I haven't talked at all about Muhammad Kamal Ali all night, and that's strange because I'm used to seeing him a little bit further up the field, but the 96 is making headway. Gal right in front of him, trying to make this pass for presumed 5th place in the lower class, and that's more like it for him, and I think he's just going to get it here. A little bobble by Gal on the outside of exiting Apaminerale. Job done. Kamal Ali up one more spot, top 5 in the lower split. Excellently done.
Yeah, so the 96 BMW making their way forward, and once they've passed that, the point is, can you hold them? And I really expected as well to see a lot more of these BMWs. I know when it first launched in the 1.8, it was everywhere, and like you had a whole series of what seemingly BMWs. But now that everyone has, you know, looked at the new fancy car and that new car smell has worn off of it, and maybe the paint's got a few more scratches on it, people have returned to their normal cars, and there's a few people who've stuck with it as a main, but it's kind of fallen back to, you know, just another odd car that you see sometimes. A bit like what the M6 was. I remember when that was, you know, the new thing and everyone had to drive it, and then they just kind of fell back off into obscurity. So it'd be interesting to see what happens in some of the really, really fast fields. I know Jardier at the minute is, you know, he's driving this BMW and doing some great things in it, so see what happens to some of the really, really fast guys. I don't think it's going to be a, you know, an all BMW convert though, like what a lot of people feared it might be.
Yeah, I don't think it will be. I think there's too much talent in the other cars and too much pace in a lot of these other cars. The McLaren as well. I mean, there's some tracks that do not suit the McLaren. I wouldn't say Imola suits the McLaren very well at all, but that's what makes racing so grand to me, is because you can take the same car to a different track and get beat by a car that you beat handily a week ago, simply because the track does not favor your car. And I still think it is on a per track basis. There's no real true meta car, and that's of course why you see so many manufacturers in display here tonight, and why you see so many of them inside the top 10. What I will say is, talk about Ferrari for a minute. We got 2 of those inside the top 10. I can't think of the last time I've seen that in a Pro Series race. They have 2 inside the top 10, but there you go. You got Pierce and Foch both doing the work for the prancing horse, and that's lovely to see as well. Well, our leader of the race has himself a very unfortunate penalty on the board, and I have been told, Ryan Mawson, by our stewarding team, that wasn't any of them. All the stop-go 30s given out tonight were given for speeding in the pit lane.
Yeah, and I heard word from the pit lane that the one of the drivers, or the blasts from one of the cars, had taken out the pit board. And what did I mention at the start in the qualifying, that it is very easy to miss your braking coming into the pit lane. The line is hard to see, it boxes in on you, and actually there's like there's a few bumps coming into pit lane, so if you brake late and realise that you've got a problem, you can lock the fronts up and you'll still go flying over that line. And well, for the 100, I think one of those scenarios has happened. They just haven't seen it, and there you go, just trying to push it to the limits. For Tan, though, who has fallen back in that pit stop, an 8 seconds back. It was a 7 second slower pit stop for Dylan Tan. He'll be rubbing his hands together because he's thinking, well, that's easy.
Dylan Tan, a lot of times you got to take whatever you can as a racing driver and not try too hard. And I think that's what Dylan's done. He's kept it respectable for most of the race, fallen off a little bit here. Savalainen had the quicker stop, but it won't matter because he had a little bit too quick of a stop. Savalainen now in to serve that stop and go 30 penalty. But what that will do is hand the lead of the race over to the Legion of Racers 141 McLaren. And I just don't see in 21 minutes of competition remaining, I just don't see Savalainen making up all of that time. Dylan Tan is going to grow his already impressive lead today, barring something ridiculous happening in the final 20 minutes of this race. That has got to be one of the most gutting feelings in the world for Juna Savalainen.
Absolutely, like I said, just a little bit too fast, and that is kind of, unless something, like I said, like a miracle happens, it is going to be Dylan Tan's championship to lose, and I think that was that. And looking back at the lower split as well, this man as well, Brandon Baker, doing incredibly well and managing to fend off, even the likes of Magazi. He's got an enormous lead. It's 3 seconds, or almost 4 seconds to the back of Magazi, and it's another 3.5 seconds back to his only other rival, which is Grim Lilith in that 115. So, Brandon Baker in the number 2 also doing some great work. And we did get news from in chat from Sebastian Brunier. He's thinking because the McLaren's so stiff, tire pressure loss is quite common on this car, and that makes sense if you're smashing curbs all the time to try and get that lap time to keep up with the Mercedes in front of you. You're going to slowly wear out those tyres and lose some pressure in them, and I think that maybe if they've just dropped too low, actually, they've gone the opposite way of what I thought. They've gone too low and they just don't have the grip anymore, and that's hurting them.
Well, that's excellent insight from Seb Brunier. Phil Large trying to make up spots himself. You remember the Turn 2 incident that Phil was involved in. Gets that spot taken and flashes the lights. He's not flashing anyone in front of him. He's almost thanking the car that he just passed, Estefado. He was running third in that class. And it's always nice to see mutual admiration of, hey, I respect that you didn't make that hard on me. Thank you very much. Estefado could have defended that position harder. Didn't feel like doing that. Large recognizes that occurred, flashes the lights. Almost like you honk the horn in appreciation, but they don't really have that option. They take that equipment out of the GT3 version.
No, I sometimes give a flash of the hazards if I've passed or they've let me past, and they've made it easy, quick flash of the hazards. That is easier said than done in some cars though, because certain cars seem to put tiny little LED lights for indicators, and you can't see them at the best of times. You've sort of got to squint, especially if someone puts the indicator on to let you know they're coming, which way they're going, they want you to pass. Some cars you've got to squint and think, is that really an indicator or am I imagining it?
Well, I was trying for the past 10 minutes to figure out what happened to the man that was racing Grim Lilith up at the front of the lower split field today, and he has disappeared clean off the top 24 board. So I think he was in the 18 car, so something amiss with that car, and that's put Grim all by himself in second place. And I noticed that not because I saw Grim in second, I saw Estefado in third right behind Grim at the time. I was curious where the other car had gone, but all of that changing indeed. Sam Welfling in the 93, one of the championship contenders, struggling today. I feel like all the main championship contenders, Mawson, in the lower class have been dealing with issues today. Of course, Anton had the spin in the hairpin. Welfling has not done so great in the Lamborghini. And, well, it's going to shake up this lower split championship.
Yeah, and I was trying to have a look to see if we could even see on our timing board where, that car that was battling Grim Lilith has gone, and I can't even see it anymore, apart from Anton, the Bentley that we saw have that spin. Yeah, they just appear to have gone, so something has happened to that car and they've possibly retired it. But yeah, the 93, well, maybe it's just not the Lamborghini's track, or they're struggling with the setup. Or I have heard before where drivers have actually struggled with the cold, like they actually prefer racing in higher temperatures because you get a little bit more heat in the tires, or sort of reliable heat, and they need that to hold on to the car. But it'll be an interesting day and an interesting final round for the lower split, I'm sure, because it certainly will shake things up.
Yeah, and it's just all going the way of Dylan Tan in pro, but in the lower class, it's going to be a land rush to the championship. We showed you the standings and they were so very close to coming into here, and this race has done nothing to settle that battle, as it is going to be a slugfest in the final race of the season. Samir Foch is recovering nicely here, all the way back up in the 6th, looking to catch up to Billen in front to take away a potential top 5 spot. Samir Foch, no stranger to good recovery drives, and a top 5 would be a pretty brilliant result, all things considered. Tan leading, Rogers and Pierce the top 3. I'm trying to think the last time we had an American on a podium in pro, and I don't know when that might have been, but there you have it. Thomas Pierce in 3rd, Roth and Bill in the top 5 for the moment. And this man, speaking of recovery drive, just trying to get back inside the top 10, pick up the pieces, but it's very quickly slipping away from it.
Yeah, Juna Savalainen trying, everything that he's got to get back past. This is Grim Lilith that we're seeing, just trying to get back up into that top 10. It won't be for position, looks to the inside, and I think Grim is, just going to let Savalainen by. There's no point racing this man, the 100, because you'll just end up slowing yourself down, as actually Savalainen doesn't have a great exit, puts Grim right up back behind him again. Just trying to hang on to his coattails almost for some free slipstream. But yeah, a recovery drive for the 100 after that stop and go 30. He'll be trying to get any kind of points just so that Dantan doesn't run away too far. But like you said, unless a miracle happens, I think it's gonna that's gonna be that.
Just a correction from earlier, Ted Edwards has corrected me. It was the 33 of this man. It was Matthew Roberts who was racing Grim earlier for 2nd place in that class, not the 18. And you may be wondering how I screwed that up. Well, folks, it's because I write like a doctor.
So you can't understand any of your writing.
Not a flippin' thing.
Well, there you go. And the 33, they did manage to get past that. It's the 62 of Miguel Martins, one of our, like you said, new commentators joining the RCI family, and just about managing to hold it off. He was telling me earlier that the Honda is not a happy car at Imola. He says he was not really getting on with it, so but still managing to make the most of it. You've got to get every points you can, especially with his place in the championship. Every little point, especially with this mix-up that we're having, with Welfling behind him, and some of the cars in front got a penalty or two. It's still all to play for.
Yeah, it really is. And now, if you're Miguel Martins and you're probably not thinking about the championship right now, but you probably know who's in front of you, and you look on the timing sheet and all those folks are behind you, you start trying to do the math a little bit in your head of, how close is this going to be? Like I said, it is going to be a mad scramble, and your guess is as good as mine. The points are so close, and they're in so many different spots. I don't know what's going to happen. I do have a feeling Anton will lose the championship lead in the lower class today, but folks, I don't know to who. It could be one of 4 different drivers, and I'm just not sure. Jaroslav Roth here trying to take away the podium position from Pierce. Roth must have heard me talk about an American finishing on the podium, and Roth said, "I can fix that for you, Jesse."
Which I find was quite funny, considering what Night Owl was originally created for was to give Americans a place to race.
Well, yeah, just in a later time, one of the biggest things about being from North America, and I'm North American splaining this to everybody, and I apologize, but the original envision of Night Owl was to give North Americans a later start time, a start time that would be a little bit too late for European, but right in prime time for the Western continents, and that worked. But what we also didn't realize, Mike Jones and myself at the time, was that people that sim race 24 hours a day. And what does the I in RCI stand for? And we're happy to have so many different groups here racing on the track today. And it spiraled out of control, Mawson, is what happened. It got away from us a little bit. Everybody wanted to race late night.
But basically, we can confirm that Night Owl is for all those people who just have insomnia and do not sleep.
Well, that was the joke because Mike Jones doesn't sleep very well or long, and at the time, this was years ago, I also didn't sleep very well at night because of my work schedule at the time, and we joked that it was for insomniacs, but since then, what we've learned is everybody is an insomniac.
Pretty much so, and actually, Samir Fosh is now starting. He's got close enough where he's starting to, poke his nose around, trying to get, anything of the Aston Martin in front of the 183. Has a little bit of a better run, aided by the Aston Martins. One of its traits, I would say, is the fact that the turbos on that car take about, I think, 82.3 years to spool up effectively. They always are a problem coming out of slow corners. And
That's especially funny coming from you. I like that.
well, it is very much accurate. I have driven this car. I can confirm that. It just takes, you plant your foot and something is happening. I can confirm that something's happening, but no real progress is being made. So it's actually like, we've got a Ferrari attacking and a Ferrari under attack. You have Samir Fosh battling Billen in front, and then you have Thomas Pierce under attack from Roth. So it's Ferrari central, but one attacking, one defending.
Stewart's hard at work as they always are. They've had it not too bad the last couple of weeks, and tonight I figure they're just getting absolutely hammered as Savalainen looks to get one more spot back here. Can't do it into two. Thanks, better of it for the time being. 5-second penalty for car 699 for an aggressive overtake with contact. 15-second penalty for car 93 for losing control over a curb and taking out the 96, but it's noted that the 93 waited for the 96 to retake him back. Warning for car 96 for not holding brakes while involved in a crash and spinning. Drive-through penalty for car 533 for taking out the 762. Disqualification for car 533 for reaching the maximum license points in a single race. I have been told that car retired before they were disqualified anyway. 5-second penalty for car 420 for forcing the 548 off the track, position not returned. Racing incident between the 420 and the 62. Warning for car 762, reversing on the track with oncoming traffic, causing danger to other drivers. Increased to a 5-second penalty because it would have been a warning otherwise, and it was their second warning. Racing incident between the 420 and the 548. Drive-through penalty for car 666 for taking out the 228. Drive-through penalty for car 111 for taking out the 778. And a warning for car 228 for not holding brakes after a spin. I need a nap.
I mean, if you need one, how do you think the Paul stewards feel trying to write all this out?
I know.
So it's all.
How do you feel? How do you
it's
feel doing the cast and all that by yourself? How's that feel?
I'm looking at all the red lights and all of the buttons and thinking, A, where did Stewie put everything and how does he work this thing? And B, everything's gone mad in the last 10 minutes. You've got this battle here, Thomas Pierce, Jaroslav Roth, they're nose to tail. You have this battle here, Samir Fosh trying to get around Walter Billen, I said the AMR, I was about to say AMG there, AMR, Aston Martin Racing. And even down in the lower field, you still have this man, Matthew Roberts, who we saw got by Miguel Martins, but has obviously come undone at some point and goes to go back up the inside of 2. Will it be too deep? No, it will not be for the 33. Does manage to park it on the apex and keep that position, but battles everywhere now in the final 7 minutes of the race. These positions need gaining and they're running out of time to do it.
Well, the time ticking through the hourglass, the sand's running out, and time for a couple of more attempts perhaps. But this is looking really good for Miguel Martins because Miguel knows regardless he's probably going to get credited with 4th place here tonight, but would like to make that pass in earnest. Going back to the night out conversation, by the way, the experiment did work. It did get more engagement from North and South America. We've got a lovely group of drivers from all over North America, Mexico, the US and Canada, and South American drivers, Brazil, Venezuela, etc. So it's fantastic. It absolutely worked. But what we couldn't have thought of was ever going to happen was we would have such a response from countries like Germany, the UK, where it's basically the middle of the night in a lot of cases. But we love it all the same, especially places like Turkey. And speaking of international crowd, Portuguese driver Miguel Martins here, continuing to try and make that pass. Almost had it there, not quite. Reset single file. Roberts, regardless of the 5-second. Oh no! Miguel Martins has just been given a 5-second penalty of his own. He has to make this pass now. It's game on for 4th place.
And he doesn't have any battle behind because Sam Welfling has been given a 15-second penalty. So that's taken the pressure off from behind. You don't have to worry about your penalty affecting your race position. I think Ali is just too far back in that 96. But yeah, so the Honda's now got to get back past the Mercedes. We've seen him do it once. I think the Mercedes is very, very fast, but might make some mistakes. It's just if he makes that mistake once again with 5 minutes to go.
Just needs an opening, does Miguel Martin. Savalainen back inside the top 10, now has to deal with the lower class leader, the AM, if you will, but I refuse to call him that because I feel like that's a little bit disrespectful to call a lot of these drivers AMs. They are not AMs. I can certainly promise you that Savalainen, though, does have to get around Baker. You can look around the outside, has a little bit more straight line speed there in the suck, but the track is bending away from him. Really have enough overlap to stick it deep down into turn 2, gaining, the car disappearing, not quite fully there. Later on the brakes is Savalainen, and he is through. I feel like that was a little cooperation from Baker there, knowing that doesn't really mean anything to him, as Savalainen does get through 9th place for Juna now, and don't know if he'll catch Vining in front, but if he is going to catch Vining, he's going to have to shake a leg. Speaking of, talk about the recovery for Vining, all the way back inside the top 10, 8th place. Excellent job.
And this was the car that we saw, spinning at the turn. It was at the exit of turn 2 into 3. Yeah, Vining's managed to get the hammer down and make the Audi work, and really got back up there. And a lot of these times now, looking at some of the lap times and the best times with completely dried up fuel tanks, maybe some fresh tires for some drivers who decided to take it, and a little bit more happy attempts and probably some tire pressure adjustments. The lap times are really coming down. The best lap now, which is still held by Dylan Tan, by the way, the 41.3. That is not a million miles away from what they were qualifying with.
That is excellent pace in the race, and well, what can you say about Dylan Tan? Speed Shoes fastest lap of the race. It looked like it could all come undone for Tan today. It looked like for a period, 2nd place was all he could ask for, but gifted to him today. But you can't really say that. Fastest man on the track, who knows? He might have taken the fight to Savalainen and won it that way anyway, but that doesn't make a difference. Dylan Tan's going to be your winner here today, barring some cataclysmic incident here in the final moments, and take with him a giant championship lead into the final round. It would be very difficult, in my opinion, for him to lose it if he could continue this. Fastest lap and the race win. It's not a max points day, but it doesn't have to be for the driver of the 141. This guy, Thomas Pierce, lost 3rd place to Roth. We're told that the 131 Ferrari had a little bobble in one of the turns and just let Roth go through. So Jaroslav Roth up into 3rd, and the 288 McLaren rounding out your podium. Pierce will try and finish this race before Foch catches him. Remember, Foch is back up inside the top 5, creeping into the picture for 4th place here.
I wonder as well, looking at the front of that car, I think that the 131 of Thomas Pierce, I think it's carrying a little bit of damage. Look at the front splitter. It's been all scratched up.
Oh, no, that's a interesting proposition. I didn't even see that. That might be. And I'm wondering where he might have got that. Was there contact between him and Roth? I wonder. That was not reported if that was the case, but either way, a little bit of damage, and whatever that is slowing him down. Foch is going to get there.
Well, Samir Foch has got, I think, with where the race leader is, it might be 2 more laps.
Oh, no.
So, Samir Foch is, he's done this as well. Another car that we've just watched this recovery drive and has been relentless in his lap time. So, Sad for you, Jesse, but your American counterpart, who we were rooting for, has been not just knocked off the podium. He's now going to have his fourth place removed from him by Samir.
Well, that actually wasn't what I was reacting to, by the way, folks at home. I was reacting to the drive-through penalty for Savalainen. That
Oh.
is a track limits penalty. We haven't seen it all day. We preached about it pre-race today that it is incredibly easy to do. Savalainen, trying to maximize the track limits, has run afoul and has been given an ACC assigned drive-through penalty, and that will likely net him no points today.
And as well, because we're so close to the end of the race, you can't really serve it now, you know what I mean? That's it. It will just get converted to a time penalty. So a sad day for the 100. Definitely what could have been. The car looks so fast and, you know, so stable, but just with the stop and go 30 and with pushing so hard, it's all come undone for the 100. Now for this battle here, one of the few battles that we've still got that are this close on track, Tamir Foch in the 888, he's got one more lap to take the 131 of Pierce. Probably, you know, it doesn't look like he's got that much damage on the 131 considering the pace, and he's still managing to keep this, you know, the 888 behind him. He's not just being passed that easily. There's only a few passing places really, and match machinery. It's gonna be a difficult one for Samir.
It sure is, and Samir at this point probably doesn't want to risk it too much, but if he gets half a chance, it is Samir Foch after all. The 888 is going to try it. The Fiat OP car, as he calls it, he will give it a go if he thinks he has a chance. Folks, in closing, all I've got to say is we have had the same thing happen in both classes. The pole sitter will not win the race today, spectacular though it may be. Completely different circumstances. Dylan Tan with a massive lead. Baker is going to likely win this in the lower class over Grimm and Estefado. And what a race it has been for Baker in the number 2 McLaren. What a great race for them, and congratulations to Dylan Tan, who has continued utter domination. Dylan Tan wins a 4th race in Night Owl Season 8 and goes ahead and makes a big old championship lead. Alex Rogers will come home 2nd place today in his Aston Martin, in his Aston Rogers, as it's called. Jaroslav Roth fought through the top 5 and will be rewarded with a top 3 podium position for Connection Lost Racing. Thomas Pierce and Foch will come side by side across the line. Pierce will get it by just about 2/10 over Foch, who completes the top 5. Baker will come across and take 9th place and the win in the lower class. What a day for the number 2 McLaren. We talked about McLaren it not being its strongest track, but it didn't matter. They won both classes today. Grim Lilith will come home 2nd after an excellent race of their own, and Estefado in 3rd in that class. What a race. We've had 3 days in a row of Imola Ryan Mawson, and every single day has been different, but just as chaotic as the last.
Yeah, and as some of the last 2 cars left to cross the line, Martin Roberts does hold on to that place in the 33 AMG. Something must have happened to Miguel Martins, because he is quite a while back, and there you go. Positions confirmed. Dylan Tan will be your leader and finisher of the race.
Well, this is highly irregular, folks, but bear with me. We have some penalties. These were done during the race, but I got to bring them up. There was a 5-second penalty for the 420, a 5-second penalty for the 62, a 5-second penalty for the 666, a warning for the 666, a drive-through for the 666, a disqualification for the 666 for reaching the maximum license points in a single race, a stop-go 10 for car 812, a drive-through for car 14, a 5-second penalty for car 19, a warning for car 14, a drive-through for car 113, and I'm told they're not done. So, for the very first time in about a month, I have to say something that I thought I had said for the last time. That is your results of the race today, pending post-race penalties.
Yeah, like I said, it's been a long time since you've had to say that, Jesse. But yes, pending the post race, we will see what it comes up with. But you know what a race it has been today.
It really has been. As we show you the highlights of the race, we just want to thank our partners that make this race and every race possible. Race Department, your source of sim racing news and information, AK Informatica, for providing our server solutions. Driver 61, you can get 25% off your driver coaching by going to driver61.com and using our discount code in the description. Driver coaching can and will make you a better racing driver. Fanatec and Fanatec.com. Use our affiliate link on all purchases at Fanatec.com. Doesn't cost you a thing, and it can help us with things like server cost and the like. SimRacing.gp. Tired of the pub racing scene? Tired of being taken out in T1 at Monza? Join SimRacing.gp. Join the community. Get involved today. It's free to sign up, people, and you will not regret it. All those links and more in the description. Join the Discord. Join the website. And we would love to have you on an upcoming series near you. Of course, the Asia Masters Championship starting up on Monday. The Thursday GT4 Championship, more of an endurance style. 2 drivers per team, a team championship, 80-minute races on Thursday. And of course, the brand new Friday Championship as well. All those signups are open, and join our Discord, join the website, sign up, and get involved. We have a split for you over here at RCI, and we would love to see you on a track in the future. Well, what an amazing race that solved absolutely nothing for the lower class today. Ryan Mawson, we have a barn burner set up for the finale in 1 week's time.
Oh, it's going to be an incredible race, like you said. Maybe the pro had been all sort of said and done, but lower class very much open to it, and it's one of the races that I'm most looking forward to. You know, Night Owl, this field, we've seen some great racing here at Imola. I think it's just going to continue for the last one. Everyone's going to want those few final points that are left on the table.
Well, we'll see you on Monday, or in fact, Ryan Gill and John Dalton will be on the call with Ryan Mawson behind the cameras for the new Monday Asia Masters Championship. And I'll be back with you on Wednesday with Nate for the continuation of the Diamond Drive Cup. Jake the Bosmeister Boswell on the cameras for that. And of course, me and Mawson will likely be back with you next week for Night Owl for the finale as well. Ryan Mawson, it's a pleasure as always. I'm really proud of the way that you handled all the buttons. I'm still confused what the launch space shuttle button does. Have no idea why Stewie has that, but excellent job.
I'm fearful that if I press that button, I shall hear Stewie's voice shouting from all the way on his skiing holiday. He will be shouting. We'll hear him all the way down in Italy. So I'm going to leave some of these well enough alone. And yeah, no, it's been a good one. We'll come back again and do it next week.
We sure will, folks. It's been an absolute pleasure bringing you tonight's race. Like, subscribe, do all the things. Nothing settled in the second class here for the Night Owl Championship. We're going to have to do it one more time, the season finale in 1 week. We'll be right back with you then. But until then, have a good night.
And we'll see you at the next one.